They say that history is written by the victors. But what if it was recorded, secretly, completely, without flaw, by a machine that could see through time itself? Beneath the marble corridors of the Vatican, where the footsteps of centuries still echo against painted ceilings and forgotten prayers, there once lived a man who believed he had spoken to the past. His name was Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk, a scholar of music, and if whispers in the shadows are to be believed, the custodian of a forbidden device, the Chronovisor. This is not a tale born of fantasy, nor a fireside legend woven for dim-lit taverns of Europe. No. This is a truth too dangerous, too incomprehensible to be allowed into the light, a truth kept in shadow, guarded by those who understood the cost of seeing too much. It began in the 1950s, in the twilight of post-war Italy, when the world had witnessed enough devastation to question its gods and just enough peace to dream of transcendence. Ernetti, deeply versed in ancient languages and musical theory, was obsessed not only with sound, but with the vibration of memory. To him, sound was not merely heard, it was engraved. He often said, "Every sound leaves a trace, man may forget, but the universe remembers." And so, within the cloisters of San Giorgio Maggiore in Venice, Ernetti began a secret collaboration with minds far beyond his own. Physicists, engineers, and some say, Jesuit agents loyal not to Rome, but to something much older. Among them was Enrico Fermi, the father of the nuclear age. Another, according to veiled letters, was Werner von Braun, the architect of mankind's reach to the moon, and perhaps to something darker still. Together they created the unthinkable, a machine the size of a wardrobe, made from rare metals, strange alloys, and an array of cathode tubes and resonant antennas, not designed to receive radio signals, but to detect the lingering echoes of time itself. They called it the Chronovisor. Ernetti claimed that the machine didn't allow time travel, but permitted observation of the past, like watching scenes from a long-forgotten play. He claimed to have witnessed the crucifixion of Christ, not read, not imagined, seen. He described Latin chants drifting through dusty air, Roman soldiers gambling for garments, and a man on a cross, Jesus, not as the perfect divine being we were taught to revere, but as something far more tragic, deeply human, and profoundly broken. He also claimed to have viewed a long-lost play by Quintus Ennius, a Roman tragedian, whose works were thought to have been lost forever in the fire that consumed the Library of Alexandria. When Ernetti described the play in detail, scholars were stunned. The meter was flawless, the language ancient but precise. How could he know unless he had actually seen it? People often believe that prophecy is a gift, that to glimpse the future is a blessing. But Ernetti, he knew better. He had stared into the stream of time like one gazes into a mirror of glass, clear on the surface, yet beneath it, twisted reflections drifted like drowned memories, screaming without sound. In his final months, Ernetti no longer spoke only of the past. He began to whisper about things that had not yet come to pass. Visions so surreal, so cryptic, they were dismissed as fever dreams. But decades later, people began to realize that what he muttered on his deathbed were not delusions, but warnings. A young monk who once tended to Ernetti during his decline spoke anonymously years later. He spoke of towers collapsing in fire, of crowds running like fields stripped bare, of a silver-haired man signing a decree that turned the oceans into storms of flame. I didn't understand, but his eyes, they looked as though they had already lived it all. Was the Chronovisor not just a window into the past, but a twisted mirror reflecting the future? A doorway cracked open, where the yet-to-come bled into the now, like a fever dream merging with memory. The Vatican never confirmed these stories, but those who once worked deep within the Archivum Secretum, the secret archives, left behind fragments, unofficial records, letters that were never meant to be read. One leaked letter from 1981, signed only by an unnamed cardinal, wrote, "We saw a battle yet unknown to mankind, a frozen land where the sun no longer rose, and dark figures moved across the snow, wielding tools that did not belong to this age. Then came the light, but no sound, only brightness and silence, and was it a memory or a prophecy?" As for Ernetti, he never said what broke him. But someone close claimed that during the final session with the Chronovisor, he emerged from the underground chamber shaking, sweat pouring from his brow, and whispered to the waiting priest, "I saw myself. But I was no longer me." From that moment on, he never returned to the laboratory. He never spoke of the machine again, not by name, only fragments remained. Strange glyphs scribbled in trembling Latin and decayed Greek, hidden in pages that felt more like spells than notes. One passage, found in his journals after death, written in a weak, uneven hand, read, "What we see are not events, but echoes. Like a voice in a cave. The deeper you follow it, the less you know where it came from. But eventually you realize it was your own voice all along." A Lupa curse. Some believe the Chronovisor didn't just record history, but interfered with it. That by observing the past too deeply, too often, it opened fractures in time, allowing events to unravel and twist into something else. Perhaps the visions Ernetti saw weren't glimpses, but consequences. We may never know how many images the machine revealed. But in a confidential report dated 1974, the Vatican issued an unusual decree, forbidding all technological instruments created with the intent to access or record time beyond human authority. Why outlaw something, unless there was something to fear? Soon after, everything was sealed away. The chamber housing the Chronovisor was encased in lead and blessed stone. The blueprints were scattered across secret archives in Europe. Some were quietly lost in mysterious fires. Fires that consumed ancient monasteries during strangely timed lightning storms. Ernetti spent his final days in silence, on a small island monastery in San Giorgio. Each morning he sat by the sea, watching the tides with hollow eyes and lips moving in prayers that belonged to no scripture. A man who once opened the gates of time, now trapped in a present he could never escape. The machine had vanished, but the whispers about it never died. When the Chronovisor was sealed and the Vatican buried all trace, the world believed the secret had sunk like a stone to the bottom of history. But the waters were never still. In the damp corridors of the Kremlin, in the windowless rooms of the CIA, and within the steel walls of Tel Aviv, files on the Chronovisor continued to exist and to captivate. A declassified document from the early 2000s revealed that in 1982, a U.S. intelligence team dispatched a group of agents disguised as priests to Rome. They were not seeking God. They were seeking time. The reports detail how the Vatican refused all contact, but the Americans continued independent research into a device based on subatomic resonance fields used to reconstruct historical visual phenomena, eerily close to the Chronovisor. But the U.S. was not alone. In 1985, a Soviet spy unit was believed to have infiltrated a centuries-old library in Spain, where one of the handwritten copies describing the sonic chamber design and how to capture ancient light was supposedly hidden. One phrase, scribbled in a British MI6 report, contained only 3 chilling words. An eye. Open forever. Whoever opens that eye could see all of time. And so the question emerged. If the Chronovisor could truly observe both past and future, has someone already rebuilt it? Rumors began to swirl of a second version. No longer the bulky cabinet built by Ernetti, but a more compact system, integrating quantum lenses, wave field accelerators, and cosmological image recovery algorithms. It didn't need human eyes. It only needed a question and the machine would play back the answer. A French physicist once said, under condition of anonymity, "They don't need to travel through time. They only need to watch. And once they've seen, they can change everything." But with such power, what would come first, truth or control? One Vatican scholar warned, "When mankind sees everything, they will have nothing left to believe in." Perhaps that is why the Chronovisor was dismantled, not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well. On the dark web, a grainy photo once surfaced under the title, "Chronovisor, Test D43, Florence 1348. The image shows an empty square, white shrouded bodies, and a kneeling crowd in the grip of the Black Plague. But among them stands a figure in modern clothing, his back turned to the lens. No one has confirmed the image's origin, but those who've seen it claim it left them dreaming of distant bells ringing in their sleep. The real question is no longer, did the Chronovisor exist? but rather, who holds it now and what are they watching? Time is not a straight line. It loops, it breaks, bleeds, and those who try to watch it too closely leave fingerprints on it. In the last years of his life, Ernetti was said to have kept a small wooden box beneath his bed, bound with leather straps and Latin inscriptions. He never opened it, but before he died he gave it to a young novice, saying only, "This is not a confession. 'Tis a warning. What was inside has never been confirmed." But the novice, who later vanished into the priesthood under a different name, reportedly told a confidant, "It showed what we become once we stop fearing what we're not meant to know." Fear. That's what held the Chronovisor in silence for decades. But the modern world is not a world of silence. It is a world of data, relentless, hungry, deafening, where everything is recorded, analyzed, and mined for insight. And now, the idea of a device that can see through time isn't just folklore, it's a target. Some believe the technology behind the Chronovisor is being revived under new names. In Geneva, they whisper about Project Echo Glass, a collaboration between quantum AI labs and defense contractors. In China, rumors swirl around Red Lens, an optical program said to recreate ancient events using cosmic microwave background signals. And in Silicon Valley, a man who made his fortune in neural networks is said to have disappeared into a private facility where history is reconstructed by math alone. They don't say the word Chronovisor, but they don't have to. They're no longer trying to watch time. They're trying to own it. But time does not belong to us. That was the lesson Ernetti learned too late. Not from a machine, but from what the machine took: his peace, his sleep, his God. In one of the final notes found tucked inside the lining of his old monk's robe, a single Latin phrase was scribbled again and again, until the ink had bled through the cloth. Et iterum crucifigimus. And again we crucify him. He was not talking about Jesus. He was talking about truth. Every time we reach too far, we crucify something sacred: mystery, humility, mercy. Chronovisor did not fail us, we failed it. We looked into the abyss and tried to bend it into a mirror. And now there are whispers that the Chronovisor, or something like it, is still active, buried deep beneath a Nordic mountain, or inside a space-borne satellite launched without nation or flag. Or perhaps not a machine at all, but an intelligence, grown in code, trained on the entire past, and now learning the future on its own. What happens when it finishes learning? When it shows someone not just what was, but what will be? Will they share it? Will they destroy it? Or will they do what every empire has done when shown the arc of time? Rewrite it. And so we return to the question, did Father Ernetti build the Chronovisor? Or did time simply choose him to carry its curse? If time itself hides secrets too dangerous to unveil, then what else have we never been allowed to see? Subscribe to Mysterious Europe, where the shadows of history still speak. And if this story unsettled something inside you, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment, because some truths are only revealed when we search together.